Hello and welcome to the BMC Quick Course series. In this quick course, I will show you how to use Change Manager for DB2 to migrate data and structure within the same subsystem. I will show you how to use Change Manager to create a work ID, specify which objects to migrate, analyze the work to be done, execute the work, and verify the results. The first step is to build a work ID. A work ID ties all the work within a project together. When creating a work ID, you specify the scope of the work where you define the dependent objects to include in the migration and any change rules. The change rules allow you to make changes to the structures. Once the work ID is created, you need to specify which objects to migrate. When you select objects, these instructions are stored in the Change Definition or CD tables that were created during the Change Manager install. The next step is the analysis phase. Analysis reads the changes specified in the CD tables, then analyzes the changes against the DB2 catalog to create a list of instructions file or work list. Once the work list is created, you need JCL to run it. This is important because the execution phase reads the work list as well as the DB2 catalog to determine the size of the output data sets to be created. The output is that's data set that contains the JCL to execute the work list. When the job completes successfully, the migration of the structure and/or data will be created in the DB2 catalog. Regardless of which tool you use to migrate objects and data, you must unload the data, create the new objects, grant authorizations, and load the data into the new tables. You can also gather statistics and bind any plans or packages that may be affected. Change Manager creates all of the job steps you need to complete these tasks. Let's see how to do it. From the Change Manager main menu, select Option 1 for Work ID. Enter a Work ID name. Just like a DB2 table, a Work ID has two parts, the owner and the name. I've chosen my ID MKTSPA as the owner and MIG2PROD as the name. Now choose Option 2 to create a new Work ID. Specify what type of Work ID to create. In this case, we will create a Migrate Work ID. The Migrate options and Change Rule options are valid only for a Migrate Work ID, and we will choose those. Here you see the Work ID name. We need to specify a target subsystem ID because we are migrating or creating a clone within the same subsystem. We will specify an asterisk as the target SSID. If you wanted to migrate to another subsystem, you would use that subsystem ID as the target SSID. We see all the dependent objects to include in the migration. This list was generated from our global migration rules, but can use the scope or choose different objects in the specification phase. For this demo, I have selected data as well as all the dependent objects. Press F3 to save your changes. Because we selected the Change Rules option, we see this panel. If you are familiar with this panel, you can simply enter the appropriate information. Change Manager guides you through the process when you enter an E in the Action column. We can edit the change rules here. For this quick course, we want to change the database name as well as the owner of the tables, views, and indexes. Because we are creating a clone of our source set of objects, these are the minimum change rules we need. For options, enter 1 for change. For objects, enter 2 for database. If you don't know the attributes for the database, enter S next to display attribute list to get a list of the valid attributes. The attributes that are valid for the object you selected on the previous panel are available. Because we selected database as our object, the database-related objects are highlighted here. In this migration, we want to change the database name. So type 31 in the attribute number field. Press F3 to save your changes. Notice the attribute name has been filled in for you. Next, enter the current value and what to change it to. We want to change SPADEMO to SPAPROD. Remember, these are just change rules. We are telling Change Manager to look for a database with the name SPADEMO and change it to SPAPROD in our work list during the analysis phase. Press F3 to save your changes. We can see that Change Manager has accepted the change rule that we just set up. This isn't the only change we need to make. We also need to change the owners of tables, indexes, and views. Rather than go through the edit process, I repeat or like the current line to make the necessary changes. Enter an L under Action. On the repeated line, overtype the information you want. I changed the object for TB for table and the attribute to owner, but kept the values for these attributes. Because I need to do the same for indexes and views, I like this line again. And here are the results. When done, press F3. The work ID has been created. Now we need to specify what to migrate. Choose option 4 and press Enter. On this panel, you are asking Change Manager to search the catalog and provide a list of objects that meet your criteria. You can use the % or asterisk as wildcards. Because we are not using a wildcard here, and we know what database name is unique in DB2, we expect a result set of 1. Press Enter. As expected, our list contains only 1 row. To use the option or scope we defined earlier, enter an M under Action and press Enter. However, if you wanted to use a different scope, you could enter MO and then enter a different scope than the one we defined earlier. In this example, we will enter M and press Enter. The M verifies that the action was taken. Change Manager will write to the CD tables that for this work ID, and it will migrate or clone SPADEMO with its data and all its dependents while making the changes we specified in the change rules. At this point, we are finished with specification. Now we need to analyze what was entered in the CD tables. Analysis reads the CD tables for the work ID and analyzes it against the DB2 catalog to create a work list or a plan to complete the work. From the Work ID Action menu, enter option 5. You need a work list name that will store your output. If you use a PDS, as I have here, that PDS must have been created already. If it's just a regular data set, Change Manager will create it. You can choose to go through the overrides. I always do this so I know what to expect in the output. select the Create Analysis Input option, and you can edit the analysis input if you want. Change Manager will walk you through the analysis options panels. If you decide not to include the data here, you could unselect the data option. For data-only migration, follow all the steps up to this point. Select the objects in the scope, but on this screen, deselect SQL. Press Enter. I'll highlight a few of the options on this panel. The No Unload Empty option allows us to look through the catalog statistics to see if the table is empty. If it is, we will not create an unload step for that object, but we will include a select statement that will verify that the table is truly empty. At execution time, if we find rows in that table, the work list will stop and you will need to reanalyze the work ID. The single phase option allows Change Manager to continue the work without stopping after the unloads. Because you are migrating within the same subsystem, select this option. Next, you will see a series of panels that will ask you which utilities to use. We recommend that you use the BMC utilities. If you have a license for BMC Database Administration for DB2, the unload, load, and copy processes run in parallel, reducing the time it takes to execute the migration. Notice option 5 under Unload. Choose this option to use NGT Recover code to recover a table space rather than unload and load it. This is a much faster process because you will be touching the data only once. You do not need a separate license for NGT Recover to use this option because the code is included with Change Manager. Here is the input that will be created for you. Since we selected to edit the input, you will see this screen. Press F3 and you are ready to run the analysis. Change Manager will always give you one more opportunity to make changes before you actually run the analysis. Press Enter to run the analysis and view the work list. This is the work list. Your analysis is complete. Now that you have the work list, you need to create the JCL to run it. The execution task will read the work list and create the proper JCL for execution. From the Work ID action menu, enter 6 for Execute Work ID. Since this is the first time we are creating JCL, we will enter a 1 for the JCL type. However, if you receive an error while executing the work list, you would need to enter option 2 to create Restart JCL once the error is fixed. You can create the JCL in foreground or in batch. I have chosen to create the JCL in foreground. Enter the name of an existing PDS for the JCL. The worklist dataset should already be filled in from the analysis step. Notice in the middle of the screen, you have the dataset sizing option. You can change that if you go through the override defaults. Press Enter. Because we chose to edit the JCL, the next screen you'll see is the actual job that needs to be run. Browse through the job when satisfied, submit the job, and press F3. At the Execution JCL Processing interface, you can enter the keyword View to see the progress of the execution. Because Change Manager takes checkpoints throughout the execution of the work list, you will see entries as the work completes. Press Enter to refresh the screen. When the work list is complete, you will see the message Execution completed successfully. If you prefer to watch the execution more closely, you can look at the output in SDSF as the job is executing. You will need to look at the output DD name AEX print. This will show you the completed executions of each statement in more detail. In this quick course, you have seen how to create a work ID that will clone a database with all its data and dependents within the same subsystem, and how to track the execution of the work list. Thank you for your time. For more information on any Change Manager feature, please visit the Change Manager quick courses in this series.